Direct News TV. February 13, 2024. Politics and convenience drive Mexico to be US's top trading partner. Before Elon Musk announced that he would pour billions into building his largest Tesla plant in the industrial outpost of Monterrey, Mexico, United States trade winds were already shifting south. In late 2022, Mexico's economy minister Raquel Buenrostro Sanchez said that 400 companies had expressed interest in relocating from Asia to Mexico. New industrial parks were popping up, many driven by Asian money, and the investments were raining down. By June 2023, some $13 billion in investments had been secured, according to Mexico's Secretary of Finance and Public Credit, most for auto or auto parts manufacturers. New numbers from the U.S. Census last week indicate that Mexico is the U.S.'s top trading partner. In 2023, the U.S. traded $798 billion with Mexico as the goods it bought from its southern neighbor surged past China and Canada. The boom around nearshoring, a catchy term that describes the movement of companies closer to their preferred market, in this case, the U.S., has helped drive Mexico into this position. This is not cyclical, this is new, said Andrew Huppert, a trade expert who has lived in China, and now lives in Mexico. What I'm seeing is a diversification of manufacturing. The calls started coming from companies saying, "I don't want all my eggs in one basket," said Joshua Rubin, the vice president of business development with the Javid Group, a Nogales, Arizona-based company which helps companies start operations in Mexico. According to the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas, Mexico first edged out Canada at the start of 2023, with bilateral trade between the neighbors totaling $263 billion in the first 4 months, as China's numbers continued their descent. By the end of the year, the U.S. had bought $475 billion worth of Mexican goods, compared with $421 billion from Canada and $427 billion from China, which saw its number drop by 20% from 2022. The nearshoring boom is not exclusive to Mexico. A report in 2022 by the Inter-American Development Bank, IDB, suggested that all of Latin America and the Caribbean was poised to reap the benefits, with as much as $78 billion in exports in the near future. Countries such as Argentina, Brazil and Colombia stood to make sizable gains. But they were all dwarfed by Mexico, which accounted for nearly half of the IDB's forecast nearshoring growth. It has caught the attention of the Canadian auto parts lobby, which has started to express concern that Chinese investments in Mexico will end up undercutting Canadian jobs. How Mexico got into this position is as much a result of its own initiatives and growth as it is geopolitical forces outside of its control. And experts suggest it is just beginning. "It's a world of opportunities now," said Marco Villarreal, who helped Hyson Motors, a Chinese-based manufacturer of ATVs and UTVs, open up manufacturing facilities in Saltillo, a city on the outskirts of Monterrey. Villarreal, who had long careers at General Motors and Caterpillar, recalled a tour of industrial parks in the Monterrey-Saltillo region in late 2020, and the head of Hyson's U.S. operations expressing surprise at the extent of the manufacturing muscle before him. "Marco, what's happening in Mexico is what happened in China 30 or 40 years ago when we started a manufacturing expansion," Villarreal recalled the owner telling him. "There is a growing interest from Asia to set up a footprint in Mexico," agreed Alfredo Nolasco, a business development specialist who founded the Mexican consultancy Spiral. What explains the boom? Mexico has long carved out a space as a manufacturing hub for the U.S., through tariff and duty-free programs that have enabled companies to set up so-called maquiladoras, as the factories were dubbed in the 1990s, to assemble products exclusively for export. The North American Free Trade Agreement, and its revamped cousin known as the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, was another boon for the southern partner. But a confluence of new factors has converged to create the surge we are seeing today. The one most often highlighted by experts on both sides of the Mexico-US border is the trade war between China and the United States. It began under the administration of former U.S. President Donald Trump and has really taken off under President Joe Biden, said Huppert. Huppert has been warning of the dwindling gains in China for years, arguing that compliance costs were going to outweigh savings. To comply with Chinese regulations and U.S. regulations at the same time is more or less impossible, said Huppert. The United States in many industries is asking for information that the Chinese could at any time deem to be state secrets. Then there was the COVID-19 pandemic, which exposed a logistical risk which had never really been considered by a globalized economy. Companies were forced to swallow tough supply chain pills as the cost to get containers of goods to North America from China skyrocketed. It killed businesses that were unable to get their products to their markets or moved Mexico into an indispensable position, as was the case for medical supplies going into the U.S. during lockdowns. All this said, it is not that companies are abandoning China or neighboring countries altogether, said Huppert, but setting up branches or expanding their Mexico footprint. The pandemic left us a very important lesson that took us from the globalization of production to the regionalization of production, said Claudia Estevez, the Director General of the Mexican Association of Private Industrial Parks. It's practically killing globalization. The war in Ukraine has been an additional factor that caused European interests to reconsider their manufacturing outposts in places like Poland, she added. Our good luck is due to our geographic position, she said. It's because we share a 2,000-mile, 3,218 kilometers, border with the biggest market in the world. As a result, the demand for industrial parks has also exploded. Some 50 new industrial parks were under construction in Mexico in 2023, almost half by Chinese investors, and another 20% that are Korean, said Estevez. In 2019, there were 2 million square meters, 21.5 million square feet, of occupied industrial park space. By mid-2023, that jumped to 4.3 million square meters, 46 million square feet. That's historic, she said. Growth that has been ramping up for decades. While this nearshoring boom is largely around manufacturing, the growth of trade is broader than that. Jamie Chamberlain, the chairman of the Greater Nogales-Santa Cruz County Port Authority, sees it as part of a trajectory dating back decades. He recalls going to rural farms in Mexico as a child with his parents, who started importing fruits and vegetables in 1971. In the agricultural sector, the growth has been astronomical. When he started in the business in 1987, the import of produce was a business that spanned November to May. Now, we're pretty much a year-round industry that imports from every single state in the country of Mexico, he said. The berry sector is the largest growth sector and all for export to the United States. It is not just demand that has greased this economic wheel. There is forward thinking involved. In Nogales, for example, the Port Authority started planning to expand its port of entry to manage the increasing flow of trucks when there were 900 to 1,000 crossing into the U.S. every day. Now it is about twice that, in each direction. The preparation in infrastructure is so important, he said. Cartels and currency. Huppert identifies two potential clouds in this upward trajectory: the instability caused by drug cartels and the currency. The peso is just too damn strong, he said. That and inflation wipes out Mexico's cost advantage. It is not just a cost advantage but a labor supply advantage, said Villarreal. The U.S. does not have the skilled labor many U.S. companies are clamoring for and which Mexico has spent decades developing. It now has more than 50 years of automobile manufacturing under its belt, which means it has a workforce that can take on technical assemblage and is more than qualified for less demanding roles, such as furniture, he noted. And where gaps do exist, the market forces are already working to fill them. Nolasco, the business development specialist, recalled one client who came to him looking for suppliers for nuts, bolts and washers. Even though Mexico is a powerhouse, we realized that for those kinds of simple issues, there weren't enough, he said. As demand grows, that labor supply issue may be solved. That's a large opportunity there to develop joint ventures with Mexico and other partners around the world. My name is Kingsley. Please like, share, subscribe and hit that notification bell so you can be the first to be notified whenever we post. You won't regret it.